Welcome to another episode of Single Track. Usually we don't do big introductions, but this is a little bit something special. Number one, I'm recording this in the evenings with wine, which doesn't happen very often, but is very delightful. On the other end is Doug is missing in action tonight. He had a family emergency, nothing critical, nobody needs to worry, but he's unavailable to be on the horn. But, so you don't have to listen to 45 minutes of me rambling. I've got guests, and this is super exciting because I've got runners, athletes who just attempted an absolute incredible route, and I can't wait to hear all about it because I was under the assumption you have to be like a crazy sponsored athlete and you have to like somewhat live right by that route to even consider attempting it. So without further ado, I've got Steph Decker, Freddie Most, and Kuo with me on the line, and they did the R2R2R alt route attempt. So welcome to the show. And I'm going to just do a round robin. Steph, quickly introduce yourself. Say hi and quickly say where you're from and what you're drinking tonight.
So I'm actually originally from Washington State. I've kind of moved around a lot as I grew up, but just always kind of came back here. I currently live in Bremerton, just a little ways from just outside the Olympics. I'm actually not drinking anything tonight, but I feel like I should go grab something.
I know, right? I put you on the spot saying that
totally.
what you're drinking, right?
I guess I'll. That's pretty much it. I lived in Idaho for a little bit when I was a kid, and I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. I guess my athleticism, if you will, kind of started out when I was doing a lot of competitive swimming as a kid, and then I dabbled in cross country in high school, and then got into it a little bit more in college, and then kind of just did a lot of running here and there. And then when I moved out closer to the Olympics, I started to get into trail running and just kind of spent more and more time out there. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
So you have a history in competitive swimming, which explains a little bit why you don't feel like you need bridges across the Colorado River, because I'm just thinking about it. I'd probably drown. I can barely keep myself up. Freddie, how about you?
My background is moved out to the Mountain West, out to the Tetons, the Western Front, and learned how to ski and loved it, and got into running through the love of the mountains. And well, I guess I'm currently drinking a pretty sweet IPA.
Nice.
From Warfield Brewing out of Ketchum, Idaho, and I don't love anything more than getting out in the mountains and planning adventures with people like I met with Steph and Calvin, and trying to make it happen.
Very, very cool. Calvin, I'm assuming you like home brewed your own beer, or you like made your own wine or something like that for tonight.
I'm in my office still. I literally just got done like maybe 25 minutes ago, so I am drinking water.
Okay, well that works.
Yes.
But aside from that, Calvin, tell us a little bit about you and your crazy running adventures.
I am a very non-crazy running adventurer. I grew up
Everybody
in
is
Texas.
laughing. Nobody buys that.
No, it's true. Like unlike the boring member of this tripod. No, I grew up in Texas. Did very conventional things, and then from an endurance standpoint, just raced bikes in college, and then we had kids, and then sometimes you have to just get out of the house, so then you go and you run road. And then we moved to Washington. I discovered these things called mountains that have elevation and they're lovely. So kind of started branching into like trail running and learning to love the suffering and hucking up some kind of an incline to the top.
Amazing. So while we're talking about mountains, the Grand Canyon is the exact opposite, right? You first drop a whole bunch of elevation and you somehow know you have to crawl it back out. So have you all done the regular rim to rim route?
So I actually have not. I had intentions of attempting that route in the spring, and those plans kind of fell through, and then the COVID kind of happened and plans changed. But I actually have not on my side.
Freddie, how about you?
I have. I've done a couple of variations. I did the South Kaibab to the North Kaibab trail like 3 years ago, pretty casually, but on my own, and finished it. And then just I think it was 5 days before we started the alt route, I did another variation, the Bright Angel to the North Kaibab and back the same way with another friend, very casually, and had a great time. And so yeah, I have a little experience down in those like major trail systems down in the Grand Canyon.
So you're the one who has multiple experiences, and Steph, you've never done the regular rim to rim route. Calvin, how about you?
I've backpacked the rim to rim route. I'd always wanted to run the rim to rim. So when I was talking to Steph about, hey, like let's do. She told me like, hey, I'm planning to do the rim to rim. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, it's my lifelong ambition to do this, so it's on my list. So I'm like, let's go. And then like every subsequent conversation with her became more and more grim. Like, wait, what?
Which route are we talking about?
Now, what? There's no bridge. So, yeah, every conversation got more and more adventurous.
Okay, so. Steph, was it your idea? Did you sort of like throw this out at the two guys and said, "Hey, I need to do this"?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny how it started. I actually had like 2 weeks prior. I had kind of gotten back from a kind of a long road trip out to Wyoming, and then through Idaho. And when I got home, I actually, powered back my laptop and got back to work and looked at my calendar and realized I had booked some more time off that I had forgotten about. And so I realized what that was for. And it was because I was originally going to go down to Arizona to go just like on another road trip. But then I figured I would try and go scope out the Grand Canyon area, and kind of did some research and checked to see what was open, like on the national park website. And then I was on the FKT site and just noticed that there wasn't a female attempt for the rim to rim alt route. And so that got my gears going. And I kind of just sat on it for a while, and then kind of just made up my mind that I wanted to like try it out. And so I reached out to Calvin, and I was surprised that he was actually really like pretty gung-ho about the whole thing. So and then got in touch with Freddie, who was also interested in running that route. And so before I knew it, I had like this whole group of people with me that were really excited about trying this. And that made me really excited, because at first I was like, why am I doing this? And I had a lot of doubt. But it was, it kind of all came together really nicely in the end.
I mean, there's a part of me where I I only want to talk about the preparation and that dream phase, and not actually about the run, because I think we all experience those moments, right, where you have some time, your athleticism is there, and you can sort of turn wherever you're at right now into doing something. And sometimes it's a sort of a spontaneous inspiration. Sometimes it's a lifelong dream that you've been working on for years. And that phase is so fascinating. And obviously it would be nothing. It would be just a dream bubble if we wouldn't actually attempt it. But just this phase of anticipation, of trying to figure out the timing and the logistics around it is super fascinating and fun part of the entire project, right?
Yeah, totally. I had that same phase that I went through when I did the Grand Loop FKT route. It's just like all of that energy leading up to that whole event is kind of like a thing in and of itself. That takes a lot of energy, cause you're just like, you don't know, like there's just so many unknowns. And this one, like in particular, had a lot of unknowns. It was for everything from the route finding to the weather to the drive. It was like a 24-hour drive there from Washington. So there was just like a lot of planning that went into it. And that was like a thing before the actual thing happened.
Absolutely. I've done the regular rim to rim route a few years ago, which was sort of my first really big running project that wasn't just signing up for some race and putting a bib on. And I had never been at the Grand Canyon before. And so it was very fascinating and daunting and super exciting to plan something so massive without never having been able to, it's too far away. You can't just like do a training run there. You can't scout it out, right? Yeah. So to our listeners, we need to set the scene how the rim to rim to rim alt route is different. Because there is more to it than there is no bridge. Like when I did the regular rim to rim, I stayed at one of the cabins at Bright Angel Trail, 200 feet from the trailhead, and as I was crawling out from the canyon, I literally crawled on all four to my cabin and ended up in my bed, and there was that. Rim to rim to rim alt is different, and I don't know who knows the history of it. I know Walmsley put it on the map by making a video about it. Was he he wasn't the very first person to complete it, was he? Do we know? Who knows?
If anyone wants to speak up, but I did a little bit of research on it. There is an individual who established some of the trails, like the Bass trails, and over time, I think there was a bridge. There was an established bridge. We kind of came to find out, but over time, I think that the bridge just kind of became dilapidated, and then it just wasn't repaired. But the trails are still there, and I think part of it is part of the park, and then part of it is part of the south side, which I believe is part of the Havasupai area. But yeah, no, I think there is a lot of history there, though. If anyone wants to add to that.
Freddie, you've been down there before. What did you know beforehand when Steph brought that up? Calvin said that he didn't really know that there was no bridge and he had to actually swim. But for you, were you aware of that route and its history?
Yeah, a little bit. I did a little bit of research, and I think the first couple of people that did it, it happened in the mid-90s. I might be wrong, but it was by Buzz Burrell and Peter Backwind.
Okay. And
they did it in a pretty fast time. That was the first party that did it like in a go that I know of. And of course it's a backpacking trail and people do it in all sorts of ways. But I think that was the first team that did that in a go, and they did it in like 16 hours and change, and then
Wow.
The time was brought down by other parties. It came down to, which I think is an amazing feat by Jim Walmsley and his Coconino crew, and but other than those few parties, I don't know of anybody else that's ever done it in a push.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose because of the lack of bridge, that obviously adds an element of, I mean, that puts me completely out of the running. But there is more to it than the bridge. And that is, let's talk a little bit about the route. And so geographically, you begin from the north in general and go down, which is the opposite, the way you normally would do the regular rim-to-rim route.
Does anyone want to jump on that?
I would say it sounds like it's typically done from south to north.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's been done both ways. I think the recently done fastest female FKT was set from north to south, and I honestly think, and talking with Steph and Calvin, that might be the way to do it. There's a lot of logistics to think, well, at least to do it fastest. And logistically, there's ways to come about that, and getting to the trailhead is the crux, I think, if you're going south.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Tell me a little bit about the trailheads, which is very different compared to the regular route, which both in the national parks, visitor centers on both sides, water sources and everything. So tell me about the trailheads on the north and the south side.
The south side's really hard to get to.
Yes.
There we go. Just the drive to even get to the trail.
We actually mulliganed our initial. So we originally intended to go south to north.
Okay.
Because the river crossing is the thing that dominates everything. So going from south to north, you have a shorter distance of a more buffed out trail to get to the river.
Okay.
So the advantage of that is you can carry your wetsuit and not have to basically huck it through the more challenging north side terrain.
Yes.
The difficulty, though, is that the idea is that you would want to try to cross that river in the daylight because it can get treacherous trying to cross it at night.
Sure.
So the difficulty of going south to north is that then you have a significant chunk of running to do to try to get out and make it back before nighttime.
Because you have to cross it twice. Exactly.
Because you have to cross it twice, and then it's just a longer the river to the north rim is a longer distance and more rugged terrain.
Yeah. Now that's a perfect explanation. This is, I mean, it's crazy that we have been talking about these distances and these adventures in one go, right? I mean, ultra running has created such a monster of a weird hybrid sport, if you will. Like you've got the classic mountaineering where you have like an expedition base camp and everything. But to do this all on these distances and these times on one go is incredible. Okay, so fairly spontaneous. You set out, you scoped out what you want to do. You figured out that north to south is easy. Well, let's talk about Freddie and Calvin. You haven't talked about your swimming skills. Steph says she knows how to do that, but how are your swimming skills? Because that's not something that, I mean, I think we all can sort of like keep our head above water, but I mean, crossing the Colorado River twice during an adventure like that requires a level of expertise and confidence. Freddie, go first.
So I wouldn't say expertise because I don't have any of that when it comes to swimming. But
he has a powerful side stroke.
Nice.
It doesn't take much to
He
get
does.
across Colorado when the river is running at a low enough rate.
Okay.
We were all well prepared. We all had wetsuits and dry suits, and so those definitely help with buoyancy and warmth.
Mm-hmm.
Steph also had flippers, which she motored across the river, which was pretty cool.
Nice. You had to carry them, but once you're at the water, it's fine.
Hey, they were neon and like so powerful.
Nice. Everything neon
it
is medium powerful.
I think when it comes down to doing it efficiently, it depends on your swimming power. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you were a strong swimmer and you were a warm person, you could probably do without a wetsuit or any kind of buoyancy, and you could just do it.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's a lot of areas that people can make the whole route faster in that fashion.
Yeah.
Nice. Calvin, how about you? I mean, swimming, second nature?
I am a terrible swimmer. I'm as terrible a swimmer as I am a runner. So that was actually what made me have the highest amount of anxiety was to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do triathlons because I'm a terrible swimmer. So, but it was manageable. It was fine. I definitely was weaker of a swimmer than these two. Getting, it's deceptive because you kind of get going and the flow seems like it's pretty mild, but the middle, it flows along. So you have that moment of truth of like, you're just kind of crawling along and then you realize like, oh, I'm not going to make this beach. And, I was the one who consistently would have to like miss the beach by a little bit and kind of have to like make my way back up. Right. But it was doable. Like when we go back, it is not an area of anxiety for me.
Okay.
It's going to be fine.
Okay. Well, good. Having that established is you guys come to the trailhead. You figured out all the timing, what time of day. What time did you decide that you needed to start based on mileage down to the river?
So, go on.
Go ahead.
I mean, our idea was to try to hit the trailhead early, but part of the thing is that, and the thing that like no one has mentioned or mentioned very clearly is, so we intended to go south, north, south, and we ended up going north, south, north, because you have to cross Havasupai reservation land to get to the south trailhead. The Havasupai have closed their land to like all tourism right now, so it's just not accessible. Don't even try.
Oh, right.
So because of COVID.
Right.
So theoretically, that will be open whenever we get out of this. So we kind of had to improvise a little bit. But going forward, like our initial, like most of our discussion was centered on going south and north. We kind of mulliganed and winged it to go north to south.
Right. What's the total mileage if you would have done the whole thing? What mileage did you prepare yourself for?
I think it was about like 40 and some change.
Okay.
So it's not that, I mean, like 40 is kind of like a happy number. And
so is that almost shorter than the regular route? Because the regular is 40 and change, right? Isn't it like 42 or so?
Yeah, I believe I think the characteristics like the vert gain and the distance are pretty similar.
Pretty similar. Okay. All right. So you start early in the morning. You head down, and then you realize how much were you prepared for the fact that the trail is very rugged. Talk to me about through kind of these first couple hours.
Go ahead.
Oh, just this is Calvin. I was like third in line, just watching these two gracefully run ahead, because once again we were carrying like a lot more gear. I did carry a bigger pack, and I did regret that instantly because just having my weight off, my center of balance off. I normally quite enjoy being a downhill runner, and just right from the get-go, I could tell that my pack was throwing me around. So it was, for me, it was pretty difficult, and I knew right from the get-go that it would be a long day.
Freddie, go ahead.
Chime in. Yeah, so we ended up waking up at 11 p.m. second night, and then drove to the trailhead. Got to North Bass at around 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we started at about 3:30 a.m. on our descent down to the river.
Perfect. Yeah.
And we all started off in great spirits. Calvin, like you mentioned, maybe chose the wrong pack and he was moving a little slower than he wanted to, but that didn't matter at that point. We were all pretty psyched to be heading down. And we had moonlight, and things started off well. And then the route finding on the trail that we thought might be easy was a little more difficult than we expected to find in a lot of areas.
How was the weather for your trip? In
I
terms
would say
of
spectacular.
Spectacular?
Yeah, it was about as good as you could.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah, that's great. Because I remember when I did it, we had an absolutely incredible day. And I think like a friend of mine from Olympia did it like a week or 2 weeks later. And we did it fairly early on to the point that there was still snow at the North Rim. Not on the trail, but the North Rim wasn't officially open yet. And he had pretty bad weather, like all his photos and stuff. I looked at them and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry because my photos are really spectacular. All right. So Steph, now did I read this right on Strava? You got injured fairly early on. Is that right? Talk me through this.
Yeah. So we, like Freddie said, we were like in really good spirits, kind of going down and getting into the canyon area. And I had kind of noticed that, just because we were carrying a lot more weight on us than I think I was used to, my center of balance, I think was a little off. And then aside from the trail and the terrain just being like incredibly uneven, and relatively unstable in certain spots. And so, your footing was always kind of moving around and slipping. And so I kind of noticed that like my left ankle was kind of like just a little bit wobbly in the beginning. And then but that's happened to me before. And we kind of just kept going, and, we were down in the canyon, and I was on a rock, and I just stepped down funny, and all of a sudden, like, my ankle just went like lateral, and I heard this like crack pop sound.
Okay.
And I belted out like some really harsh swear words, and it echoed, and it was, it hurt. And we just kind of collected ourselves and sat there for a second, and I got up, and, these guys just like, I don't know. I just thanked them for like being there when like, it was just really good that they were there. We got up and we just kind of assessed the situation, and which I think is really important, like when you're in a group of people doing a big effort like this, just to kind of talk about your risk tolerance and safety and be all on the same page as you move forward. And I was able to put weight on it, and Calvin ripped apart a buff, and we just like used that as kind of like stability. And I kind of trotted a little bit, and then a little ways down I stepped on some loose rock again, and it hurt. Mm-hmm. So I think at that point we were kind of like, we were making really, really good time, and then we slowed way down. Yeah. And so I think at that point we decided that we were okay with going down to the river and kind of assessing the situation, and then seeing what we wanted to do at that point and how things were going. But I think I was in a different headspace at that point, and wanted to be able to get down to the river to see it and know what that was like. And because I could walk and put weight on my foot, we were probably like 3 or 4 miles from the river anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. And so we got down there, and I was really happy with what we were able to accomplish in the end. And then we had to hike back out.
Yeah.
with my ankle kind of like a little wobbly, and but we made it, and it was good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's so many interesting pieces that I want to touch on. One of them is this moment when things go sideways on a run, and you have, I mean, you have somebody with you that you can process it, right?
Yeah.
I think we as trail runners, we all want to achieve things, and we might pick routes that would give us FKTs. But when you are in this moment, it is so great that you can express that you have somebody with you that allows you to talk things through and put things in perspective and give you comfort, as opposed to feeling the pressure of, oh, I need to, I can't let my fellow runners down or whatever, right? Because it could go the other way around too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that that's like a really good point. I am pretty used to running big stuff on my own. But I think for this, it was just one of those calls that it was better to have a group, whether it's people that are interested in doing the route or just in general. I think this is something that, like, if you're doing it for the first time, it's just, it increases your chances of being able to process situations, as a team.
Yeah.
But I think that, we just learned a lot together, and I think that was really big. And I just really appreciated these guys being there, and being able to kind of be patient, because I definitely was not I was definitely processing the fact that it was going to happen, and then suddenly it was not going to happen, and that was a lot for me to take in. But yeah. So
at what point did you make the decision that this was not going to happen, and this would be more of a fact-finding mission for future adventures, for trips?
I think when we got down to the river, we kind of chatted a little bit, and then we crossed the river, which actually felt really nice on my ankle to just have cold water and just swimming a little bit. That motion felt really good.
Nice.
And once we crossed, we kind of looked up at these gnarly cliff edges, and we were looking at the time and how much daylight we had. And I just thought to myself, I do not want to, nor do I think it's a really good idea to climb down that at night. So that's kind of when when I looked up and saw these really steep ridges that we would have to climb down, scramble down.
Yeah.
That's when I realized this probably won't happen right now.
Yeah. Because it is a very, very different route to the regular rim-to-rim route, where it's long and it's gnarly, and especially the South Kaibab downhill was, to me, surprisingly challenging because the mules go down. And so the trail was fairly uneven, but in the end, it was so well established, you knew exactly where you were going, right? It was very much, you just followed the National Park Trail, right? This is different.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all that's the risk that we take and accept when we do adventure runs like this, and that come with a lot of unknowns and a lot of logistics and a lot of planning, is just stuff can go sideways before, during, or after, and you just kind of have to roll with it and accept that if it's not going to happen, then you always have a backup plan, a plan B, because you want to stay safe, and then in the end, you also still want to have fun. So, and I think we had so much fun, despite the fact of what kind of went down.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Nice.
Definitely had a blast. So.
Awesome. So, Freddie, you make it across the river. You assess the situation. How far up on the south side did you go? to kind of figure out the trail, learn stuff for next time?
We didn't go anywhere up the south side.
Okay. So you didn't even get out
across,
of your wetsuit. You just went over. We did it once.
we made it across the river. We had an awesome swim. It was spectacular. It was like swimming in the Grand Canyon, and the light was great, and the water was awesome, and we were having fun, and spirits were high, and we assessed things as we got to the other side. And it was really cool because we didn't know exactly where we wanted to head out. Mm-hmm. But as a team, we assessed how we can do things more efficient the next time we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
And, at this point, Steph is still looking up the hill, like she still wanted to go. And sorry, Steph, but
I know. Thanks for calling me out. I was so like, are you guys sure?
The yearning is there.
Probably the right time to call it, and it ended up being a really good decision.
Yeah.
On more than just that level, but we learned it, and it was so cool to be down there in the bottom of the Grand Canyon with these folks and learning it, and swimming in the Colorado River was just so cool. We swam back to our stuff and regathered, and
It's funny, you've been talking so positively about the swim. Now I'm almost like starting to be jealous, because when you just run and you have a bridge there, you don't get to spend a lot of time at the water. You just see the water, run across, and make it out the other way. Calvin, what was the plan were you planning on stashing your wetsuits down by the river and run up the south, come back and grab it again, or were you planning on carrying everything?
No, the plan was to stash everything on the south side. Because from when we were originally planning it out at home, you kind of don't know what the terrain is like. So even stashing it on the south side still involves hucking your stuff up the cliff. Mm-hmm. Because you would not be getting back in the river where you came up, because you want to go up the river to hit the river again on your way down. So for next time, we would definitely have to huck your stuff up the cliff and then try to find a place to stash your stuff later. And we had like these little beacon lights to mark our stuff to find in the dark. So we kind of thought about all this, but still, when you're there, you're walking around. It definitely does give you a different picture than what you expect sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steph, how was your foot done on the way out? Were you at that point just keeping it chill? Were you still trying to keep a good pace? How was the pain level?
Yeah, so it was just basically like a super, super mellow hike out. Okay. There was a lot of when it got dark, I started using Calvin had a set of trekking poles with him. Yeah. So I those came in really good handy. And then I think it's a slow go anyway. When it gets dark and you're just trying to kind of find your way through what looks like a trail and kind of just looking for cairns and trying to kind of keep on the trail as much as you can. I mean, you're kind of moving slow anyway. I guess the point is just to get out safely, and so I just kind of kept it pretty slow and mellow. But really, I think doing that just kind of kept I really didn't have any pain, and just kept things safe, I guess, for everyone.
Yeah. You didn't have any pain because you managed your body properly, that you didn't put it in. Yeah, no, I think we all know these things where you're where you're almost feeling well, could I go faster? But you know that you sort of have to hold back in order to not get injured even more.
Yeah.
So let's switch a little bit, because this obviously was an experience that didn't go as planned, but you obviously still drew some amazing experience out of it, and you definitely vowed to be back. Perhaps before we go there, do you already have a plan on when you'll be back?
That's a little TBD right now.
Okay.
I think I've got some big plans for next summer out in the Olympics that I'm hoping to accomplish, but whether it's next year or the year after or at any point in time, I do plan to go back and run that route again.
Yeah. How about you?
Sure.
How about you, Freddie? Did it give you enough? Did it whet your appetite enough that do you feel like you have to do this at some point soon?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it will be next fall, whether or not Steph joins.
Okay.
Be there for it.
Okay.
Like, we got to do it.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Calvin,
sure.
are you going to be part of this next time?
I give in to peer pressure, so if what's funny is like if they would have me come with them again, I would love to go back. But I remember when I was lost in my pain cave coming out, I do remember like Freddie saying, "Calvin, would you do this solo?" And I just remember scoffing, saying, "No."
Yeah, I can see that. So let's talk about positive things. 2020 was shitty enough of a year. What was one of your and I don't want to keep you guys too late, but what was your highlight of the year that you did that was amazing and you actually achieved what you set out to do? How about I'll start with Freddie.
Whoa, thanks for calling me out.
Well, I mean, if you need to think a minute, you can pass it down the line and you can think it out.
I had a really, really cool summer of achievements, and with what I like to do, and it all involves being in the mountains and doing what I love to do. And honestly, like, going down to the out route with Calvin and Steph was one of the highlights for sure, because there was just so much that involved going around, even starting it, and meeting these new folks and having making a really good relationship with them and like being on board for going for it. And I think that honestly that this is probably the highlight of my season.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really good, and here we go into winter and gonna make some more of it.
Very, very cool. Now you put Steph and Kevin under pressure, right? But you're saying you had an amazing summer, but really that route was the highlight. So now if they pick something else, Steph, how about you? I've seen what you're doing in the Olympics. That's part of the reason why I'm bringing it up. I don't want to dive too deep into it, as I said, but I want to hear if there is one that you need to highlight.
I mean, I think I would have to agree with Freddie. Like, I think although this wasn't completed in full, I just think that sometimes that's like, those are the best stories to share with people. You have so much to talk about, from the things that you experienced as successes and things you gained, but also like all the things you learned in the process. Like it's, I mean, I think that sometimes when we plan things, we can kind of take for granted like how accessible like certain trails are, certain mountains and certain terrain. But to plan something like this and to do it with, but I had Freddie and Calvin, I had never met Freddie before.
Okay.
So, that was new. And that was exciting. And now we have this like we have this cool friendship between the three of us and this story to share that is unique and fun, and we'll never forget it. And it just kind of like fuels the fire to just go back out and do it again, which, I mean, like we've already talked about, is definitely going to happen. I think for things that I've actually like done in full, I would say that the Grand Loop was definitely an accomplishment for that, for my summer season, I'd say.
The Grand Loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you mentioned that, and the Grand Loop is such a big bucket, we'll have to make sure that we'll bring you on for some Grand Olympic storytelling, because there are too many routes and too many stories, and they're. Calvin, how about you? To tell me that one of your highlights of the summer was the turkey trot at the Capitol Forest or something like that.
It was the little backyard adventure course near my house. It was absolutely lovely. The pond was fordable, and I actually got lost on it because it was 11 p.m. and I was running down there and I was trying to skirt the pond and I got disoriented.
Oh, I remember that story from the beginning of the year. The pond in the little city park, amazing. Yeah.
Like I had a moment where I was like, I am gonna maybe get hypothermic here because I can't really move fast enough to stay warm.
It's incredible. For people who don't know, there's a little city park here out in Olympia that was just recently acquired by the city, and there are a whole bunch of trees and lots of trails that have been built over the years that aren't really established as like city park trails yet, and as a result, you can get really turned around. Like you're less than a quarter mile from some regular housing development. So it never feels like you are really lost. But it is a very dense Pacific Northwest style forest with lots of twisty trails. I remember getting the message from Calvin, who was like, dude, I almost got lost at LBA. And I'm like, what? This is amazing.
I know, and I know those trails well too. It was silly.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an incredible story. And I mean, I love that you're sort of echoing that these type of adventures don't have to be always the perfect outcome that you envision. Adventures can be had just spending time on the trail. You know, sometimes things go bad by getting injured and you have to make an adjustment. Sometimes the route doesn't appear, or you just don't feel it for the day, especially on those big runs, right? You know, if you can't keep calories down or whatever it is. So it's incredible that you still walk away from this and say, this was an incredible experience. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
How about, do you guys want to plug anything to our listeners? If they have more questions, want to contact you, follow you, do you have a website? Do you have an Instagram? What is it? TikTok? What do the kids do these days? Where are you most active?
So I'm always like, I guess I could, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm not like a huge social media person, but I like to post pretty pictures on Instagram. So, Steph Decker PNW is my Instagram handle.
Okay. And we'll link all of your links in the show notes, for people to easily click on them. Freddie, how about you?
Oh, I just hang out, I'm on Instagram, Freddie most.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I like sharing pictures, and thanks so much for having us.
Yeah. For sure.
Absolutely. Calvin, where do you post your pictures of your awesome bread you're baking?
I don't have anything interesting. I do have an Instagram account that I just say create neat things and post pictures, but that's KUOCAL if I have anything to plug, it's wear a mask, take care of each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Freddie,
cheers, guys.
Calvin, Steph, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Thank you for spending the time with us. And I think we call this a show.